All right, what's going on, everybody? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm gonna give you guys time to come into the conversation as we get started. Welcome to Dr. Boyce TV. This is the home for intelligent Black people. So if you're not Black and intelligent, you may want to get the fuck out. This is a place for people that want to think outside the box. They want to challenge their perspective, and that are okay with being Black. They don't, where they don't consider being Black to be a bad thing. Sorry, let me mute myself there. There we go. All right. All right, so I am muted. All right, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff going on with Antonio Brown. I don't know if you guys have been following this. I see some of you that are coming into the chat. I see you, Jonathan and Chris, and who else is in here? Mr. Lomax, Alicia Howard just walked in the building. How you doing, Alicia? I love that name. That's the name of my wife to be. Hello, let's see. I see Frank, and I see a bunch of other folks in here. Give me a yes or no if you've been following the updates with Antonio Brown and what's been happening with him. Say yes or no in the chat. What's going on, everybody, on Twitter? Twitter is Dr. Boyce Watkins and then the number 1, Dr. Boyce Watkins 1. Give me a yes or no if you've been following the developments in Antonio Brown. Amy in Atlanta, have you been following Antonio Brown? Okay, I see a lot of yeses in here. All right, good. Okay, so today I wanted to dig a little deeper and go a little bit outside the lines, to use that ESPN term. And I get a chance to speak with my brother, respected colleague, Mr. Jeff Lightsey Jr. From the Ball Sports Network. The Ball Sports Network, Ball stands for Brothers on Sports and Society. And basically, the URL is theballsportsnetwork.com. And so before I begin, I'd like to welcome Jeff to the platform. How you doing today, brother?
I'm pretty good, Boyce. How about you, Dr. Boyce? How are you doing?
Doing really well, man. Really well. Now, you've been over at Boss, and you really had a lot to say on a lot of issues. And I know that you have a lot to say about what's going on with Antonio Brown. And so just for the people that are not aware of what's been going on with Antonio Brown, why don't we start with your description, with you being a sports expert. How would you, Antonio Brown's kind of a superstar, right? Here in the NFL, he was a big deal. How would you have compared Antonio in terms of saying, what ranking he would have amongst wide receivers in the NFL?
So Antonio Brown, when he was playing football, he had what we would call Hall of Fame credentials, right? He played 9 seasons in the NFL. He's like a 5-time All-Pro, 7 or 8-time Pro Bowler. So he's someone that if his playing career ended, today, he should be a Hall of Famer, basically. So that means he was the upper echelon of football players playing, upper echelon of receivers, upper echelon of football players that were playing in the NFL when he was actively playing. Like, he's that good. He was that good. It seemed like a great guy as well. Like, before a lot of these recent incidents, Antonio Brown was someone who was a, community servant, really good teammate for the most part. And then it all, like the last few years, kind of just derailed. And it's really been very, very sad to see. The last 3 years, you kind of just seen his career just slowly dwindle for a lot of things that don't involve football. And that's what makes it even worse.
So with Antonio, what first of all, what happened? Like, do you think, I heard a sports commentator on ESPN, I don't know if it was Shannon Brown or somebody else, they mentioned that Antonio actually has not been right since he took a really bad hit in a game. Have you heard that argument out there that maybe he took a couple hits that might have thrown his brain off?
So Antonio, like a lot of people, come from pretty much nothing, right? Like he was like a 6th round pick. He kind of made his way out of no way. He was an undersized guy. So, some people are good at sports because they're given God-given abilities, like gifts, right? Like they're 6'5", and they can run super fast, and they can jump super high. But Antonio Brown, really did his through work ethic. Right? Like he had the hardest work ethic at any player in the league, and that's how he was able to make his way. And so a lot of people refer to that hit he took when he was with the Steelers against Vontaze Burfict, but I wouldn't consider a lot of his antics after that hit. I think a lot of it came after he became the highest paid receiver, right? Like, so Antonio Brown, like I said, was drafted in late rounds and kind of worked his way up the depth chart into being, like I said, really should be a surefire Hall of Famer. And so when he was given this big contract by Pittsburgh, it's kind of when you started to see some of these antics creep its way into his lifestyle. And it's only progressively gotten worse. And it actually cost him $30 million. And you would think that would make you calm down, when you lose $30 million. But for him, it's something that's continued, and I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. But yeah, some people have referred to that hit, but I wouldn't go that far. I think has a lot to do with getting paid.
Okay. And for those of you who just came in, I'm speaking with Jeff Lightsey Jr. from the Ball Sports Network, and we're talking about Antonio Brown and kind of trying to have a thoughtful conversation about what's going on with him. In case you didn't see, Antonio just recently got into another crazy situation where he might actually go to jail. And I'm looking at your comments as you guys are coming. I see Alstar and some others are mentioning CTE as a possibility. And I think it's not just a possibility. I think it's a probability because most of the players. In fact, actually, they say most college players actually have CTE, not even most NFL players. NFL players, it's a whole different level in terms of the speed of the game, the size of the players, the power, the hits, things like that. But then you're right, though. There's that other point, right, where, in light of his recent situation where he might actually be arrested for this altercation where he allegedly with his trainer got together and beat up the delivery guy or something. I don't know what it was. There are lots of people that talk about when he got that money, that he got that big contract and that he started acting a fool. And I remember Shannon Brown saying, that, and I agree with that, because I'm a financial guy, so I resonated with this, that money tends to make you more of what you already are. Yeah. and I remember Shannon Brown making a good point where he basically, in so many words, said he was an asshole when he was broke. So now he's going to be a rich asshole, which is going to be much, much worse. What do you think? So you think the money kind of made him, think a little bit too much of himself?
Yeah. So like you said, I mean, like you said, a lot of people, money just makes you more of who you already are, right? So Antonio Brown was a hard worker, but when he, like you said, if you act like that already when you're broke and you get some money, it just validates your actions, right? So that only allows you to continue doing what you're doing, because obviously it must be right if they're going to pay you and you keep putting up numbers, right? And with NFL teams, as long as you produce, then they don't really care about a lot of this stuff until it starts to hurt their money, right? Like until it starts to hurt them financially. And what he was doing up until recently wasn't hurting teams' financial issues. It wasn't until he started getting accused of sexual assault allegations is when teams were kind of like, okay, like maybe we should take a step back from Antonio Brown, because now if we bring you in, now you're going to hurt our bottom line, right? Like now you're going to hurt us financially. So, and that has a lot to do with it. And with AB, what's so crazy is that AB, like I said, was one of the most well-respected people in all of the league. And the CTE thing is a real thing. Like it is a legit thing. But I remember I did a story about AB when he was like cursing out the mother of his children in front of his children. And I said he should have a better circle around him, right? Like he should have better friends. Like it kind of embarrasses his family. And all people were killing me for that, right? Like they were getting on me. But now it's almost like I was kind of right? Like now he might go to jail because of that circle he didn't have that didn't keep him stable. Like I said, the CTE is a real thing, but I do think that if you surround yourself with the proper people, a lot of these things could be avoided, right? Like a lot of these things could have been avoided. And I think that it's unfortunate for Antonio Brown has come to this, that where he might serve some jail time because of some of the recent action.
Well, what's funny, and by the way, I'm speaking with Jeff Lightsey Jr. from Ball Sports. We're talking about Antonio Brown. If you haven't done this yet, could you two guys take a second? Please hit the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you hit the notification bell and the subscribe button so you can subscribe. Also, if you like sports, we actually have a Black-owned sports platform that we're a part of called Ball Sports. It stands for Brothers on Sports and Society. So if you like sports, the URL, somebody type it in the chat, please, so others can see it. Go to thebosssportsnetwork.com, THE. That's thebosssportsnetwork.com. And that's what Jeff does a lot of his commentary. And he's really, really, really good. He's young, but very, very sharp and super good at sports. And also, if you're on Twitter, could you retweet this to your page real quick? We'd appreciate that. If you're on Facebook, share it to your page. So let's say this, I'll tell you, I think that with Antonio Brown, he's either the CTE is affecting him or it's not. I think that can be debated, right? And you're right. That hit that you talked about, from what I understand, that occurred like right before he actually got the big contract. So it's hard to separate which was which, right? Did he just get hit in the head and that screwed him up, or was it the big money that got in his head where he started losing his mind and acting a fool? But here's two things I noticed about Antonio Brown. One is that, he's still, it ain't like he's just butt naked crazy. He ain't Delonte West. Delonte seems to have just lost all of his marbles, to the point where, either drugs led to the mental illness or the mental illness led to drugs. But whatever, when you see Delonte West, you see something that is just like, whoa, something is really wrong here. It's not just a guy making bad choices per se. It's deeper than that, right? So, Antonio Brown can still train every day. He's still got the mental capacity to understand and memorize, complex offensive schemes and routes and break down the defense, right? I've seen him train where he was working out, and I was super impressed. He's running these routes with precision and perfection. He impressed the hell out of the Saints. He impressed the hell out of the New England Patriots and Tom Brady, to the point where a lot of people believe they could have had a Super Bowl shot if they could have kept him on the roster. So something is working in his brain, right? And so to me, it almost seems like that goes to the second point, that what you really also see is that, okay, if you are crazy, what, to your point about having a circle around you, you can have that circle around you that keeps your crazy at bay. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we know he's got these issues, but if he's got people around him, they can say, okay, he acting crazy again. Get him off Instagram. Right. And it almost seems like, just as an investment decision to protect that, 30, 40, $50 million contract or whatever the hell they were trying to sign him for, you could surrender where somebody else is controlling the social media or whatever, to where he can't even get, like, okay, you got something crazy to say, you're going to have to say it on the phone or whatever, but you can't get on your Instagram and say that crazy shit to 2 million people.
Listen to this, boy. So the thing that got Antonio released from the Patriots, right? So he was accused of sexual assault of 2 women, right? But the Patriots were going to ride it out, right? Like, they were going to say, we believe you. It's all alleged. We don't know what's true. It's your word versus her word. We're going to ride you out, right? And Antonio gets on his phone and sends a threatening text to one of the women. And then she obviously releases it to the league, to the world, to TMZ or whoever. Then of course they got to cut you. Like, I got to cut you. Like, that was just stupid, right? So, but that's where I think someone, or he should have someone, or a group of people, and be like, hey, B, we can't do this, man. You look like you are hurting yourself, the investment, the money, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, your money, that his career earnings is only going to take him so long, right? It's only going to take him so far. This 50 million or whatever, like, it sounds like a lot, but when you have $50 million worth of expenses, it's only going to last for so long. So therefore, you got to have continued streams of revenue, and your biggest source of income is football. And when they take football away from you, that just gives him, in this case, more time to do dumb stuff like beat up delivery truck drivers. Like, so we have to, at some point, we have to think like, okay, my biggest source of income is football. All they want me to do, like, the NFL is really willing to put up with a lot, right? Like, we've seen in the past that the only thing that NFL really isn't willing to put up with is taking a knee for the national anthem. But I mean, if you ain't doing that, then they'll give you a job. Like, they'll give you second and third and fourth chances, especially when you can provide them a service that they can't get everywhere. Antonio Brown provides a service in his talent that you just can't find anywhere. So they're everywhere. So that's why he got the shot with the Saints, right? Or a pretend shot or whatever. So therefore, you just have to keep your head on straight. And if you have a certain circle around you, they'll be able to do that. And that's why I think his family and friends come into play.
Well, what got me, man, is I think about this, right? And I compare him to another wide receiver who seemed to make a different set of choices. Tyreek Hill. Tyreek is going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And I guess in a week or two, whatever the Super Bowl happens.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna put it out there. I read Antonio Brown's text message. I don't just pay attention to what the media tells me about other black men. I like to see things for myself, because white people ain't never gonna stop acting white, and they like to judge us in ways that don't make sense sometimes. I didn't have as much of a problem with Antonio's text to the lady. I thought it was stupid, absolutely, completely stupid. But I didn't see it as threatening. I saw it as tick for tack. Okay, so you're going to go in my background, or you're going to try to embarrass me. Well, we're going to dig in your background and embarrass you. All's fair in my opinion. I don't think that's attacking. I don't think that's threatening. I don't think that's victim blaming, because I'm still, a lot of these Me Too type situations, I'm always trying to figure out who's the victim actually, right? Because you know that there are thirsty ass people out here that are on that money chase that will make some shit up so that they can go and get you to write a check. That does happen. It's happened. I've seen these things up close. Now, but here's the thing, right? So now Tariq's text, well, to me, that was concerning, right? He was like, you need to be scared of me, bitch. He said something where I'm like, if you say that to my sister, right, we're gonna have a problem, right? And so I felt that Tariq's text, when I read Tariq's text, I said, whoa, if I was giving advice to his girlfriend, I say, you're dealing with a man who might, push forward
harm on you, who might hurt you. Yeah.
Right. Get you a restraining order or whatever. Right. So, but here's what's interesting. There's a huge difference in terms of how the two guys handled it. Tyreek, again, he took advantage of, you mentioned the big margin of error they give players when they're good. Tyreek is also a great wide receiver. Tyreek stayed cool. He didn't do anything else stupid. He didn't give the Chiefs a bunch of reasons to cut him. And guess what? He's playing in the Super Bowl.
Antonio got a new contract after that. He got a deal around that time, because like you talked about that, and the whole case around Tyreek Hill was he allegedly broke his own son's arm, right? Like that was the thing behind that, and that's why those messages were being exchanged. So Tyreek Hill had a series of domestic violence allegations. We're not going to call it, just allegations that essentially got him put out of school, right? Like they got him put him out of college. And they got him in trouble early in his NFL career. And then he allegedly broke his own son's arm, right? But like I said, when you are a talented, call the NFL right or wrong. When you're talented, they're willing to put up with a lot, right? Like they're willing to put up with a whole lot. And if you keep your head down and nose clean, they'll let it's go unscathed. Nobody's talking. It's Super Bowl week, like you said, or the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. And nobody's talking about that anymore. It's all gone. You know what I'm saying? Like Tyreek Hill did what he was supposed to do. His friend, his agent, his publicist, his somebody got in his ear and let him know, like, yo, Tyreek, this will go away if we do what we're supposed to do. And that's exactly what it did. And now, like you said, he'll be playing for a chance to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And so to me, in terms of just, strategy, right? Putting morality to the side. I guess my job is not to be here to necessarily be the morality police on these guys, right? I'm not, Antonio Brown, I've given him lots of leeway in the sense of saying, okay, he's young. He went through a lot of things as a kid. I read his whole background, his whole bio. In fact, when I first saw his behavior from the beginning, I instantly knew, I said, okay, I bet his dad is not in his life. Because that's what dads do. Ladies out here, anybody who's lying to you, telling you that kids don't need a male role model, they're lying to you because this is what happens when the male role models are not around or they're not listening to, right? So, Antonio Brown's dad, who's a great athlete, I think he was the athlete of the decade for like arena football or something, right? So you have these genetics his father passed on to him, but the guidance isn't there. I just haven't seen much mention of his father. And I saw the battles he had with his stepfather. I read about that. I read about a lot of his upbringing in Miami. And so I think that there was a lot of leeway to be given in terms of saying, okay, this guy's traumatized. He's been through a lot of shit. Let's see, maybe somebody can get him on track. Like Jim Brown used to do that for a lot of young guys. He used to be a mentor to help the guys kind of chill out, calm down, focus, right? But the issue, I think, got to the point where it's like he kept pouring salt on his own wounds. Like before you're even over the last thing he did, he does something else to make it worse. And it's kind of interesting also because, the social media, it makes you feel like Superman. It's a drug in itself. I mean, social media literally is a drug. There is such a thing as social media addiction. That's the thing now. The therapists are all talking about this shit. And so he's got all these followers, and all these followers are cheering him on. Like, when you're on social media, and I know this because I have a big platform, right? And not Antonio Brown level, but I got a few 100,000 people out there. And I'm telling you, like, it's a vacuum, it's a bubble where you could go out and say, I murdered 3 people this week. It's because they stole my tacos. And most people be like, well, that's okay. You go. Good job, Dr. Boyce. And that makes sense, right? That's what. So Antonio Brown gets that every day from these people that are cheering on any antics that he commits to. And I think that only makes things worse. What do you think about social media in terms of, how the NFL even balances, where they got these players that have these big platforms where they don't need to do press conferences anymore or wait for the media. They become the media themselves.
Well, there's two things to look at, right? Like you can use your social media platform for, to push envelopes that these national big brands don't want to be associated with because it'll hurt their bottom line, right? Like we've seen LeBron James use his social media platform to advocate for guys like Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown and different things that are like social injustices. Or we've seen Colin Kaepernick use his social media. Like we've seen those things because obviously the big NBA or the NFL won't do that, but the players individually can do it themselves. But in the case of AB, it's obvious that he has some sort of social media addiction. He has some sort of complex where he has to get validation from his millions of followers or millions of subscribers or whatever, because everything he does, he puts it on live, right? Like he puts it on Instagram live, Facebook live. Like the first incident that we knew like AB might be off a little bit was when he went Facebook live from the locker room, right? Like Mike Tomlin's giving this rah-rah speech, cursing out, talking about the Patriots because that's who they played in the playoffs. Like this is a playoff game, boys. Like this is like you're supposed to be at the pinnacle of your athletic career and you're talking about trying to go win a Super Bowl, and instead you got a camera, letting 2 million people in on a locker room conversation by your head coach. So that was our first incident. Like, man, maybe he ain't all the way there.
Was this before the game or after the game?
This was after the game. Like after they had just won a playoff game, I think they had just beat Kansas City, and they were going to play the New England Patriots the next week. And Mike Tomlin was saying some things that people might find offensive, but it's football talk about the next opponent. He had said some curse words or whatever, and he was just basically like, "Yeah, we're gonna go and beat the hell out of them." You know what I mean? Like basically, like we're about to go and rah. And AB is Facebook Live in it, right? So to the point where Tomlin kind of has to put out an apology, kind of, sort of, half-heartedly about what he said because it was meant to be kept in the locker room. That's when a lot of people jumped off the AB bandwagon right there. But I rode with it. But and so AB, like every single thing he does, he puts on social media, right? Like when he was in the short time he was in Oakland, he put his conversation with John Gruden on social media. He put when he got cut from Oakland, he's like, I'm free. That was a whole, documentary style video on social media. So it's like, and then of course these recent Instagram lives where he's cursing out police and cursing out the mother of his children in front of his children. We only know all of this stuff because it's on social media, right? So he has some sort of addiction, some sort of connection to that is quite frankly unhealthy. Like it's definitely unhealthy.
Well, it's definitely very costly. And here's the thing with Antonio Brown, he's going to lose a lot of money, not just from the football contracts, but also because when you're out here punching people out, stuff like that. Like when you get money, people always want to sue you. Like lawyers will just sue you just because you were in the room when somebody else did some shit, and they're just throwing darts, just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. So they're like, okay, he's the rich guy. We're going to sue him because we just think we might get some money just because they'll pay us to make the lawsuit go away. Like Will Smith said, he has 15 lawyers he keeps on retainer just because people sue him because he was breathing funny that day, right? And so with Antonio Brown, for him to have the audacity, when people talk about that whole idea keeping it real goes wrong. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Talk about when keeping it real goes wrong. Well, when keeping it real goes wrong is when you become a multimillionaire, but you're trying to be a street thug. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to keep it real. You're trying to keep it 100 for your boys. You're trying to, do it the same way you did it back in the streets. And it doesn't work very well because there are people waiting for you to lose your cool so they can sue you. And they might just be chasing, a $500,000 check or whatever. And so when you're, so that's what puts rappers in danger because rappers got to, be real, right? Athletes, it puts them in danger. Aaron Hernandez, again, putting the CTE to the side. I think with Aaron Hernandez, Antonio Brown, you're talking about brain damage, which I think should be brought into court, right? I think that when you're charging these guys with crimes, the brain damage should be seen the same way you would see any other mental capacity issue that undermines your ability to withstand trial. Like if I go and kill somebody and I'm mentally retarded, then they're going to consider that, right, in court. Yeah. If I'm bipolar, schizophrenic, or whatever, like, and my doctors are saying, well, this is why he did these things because he has this mental health condition. That should be considered, right? It's going to be considered. So I think CTE should be considered. But
the only problem with that is that CTE can't be detected until you pass away, right? Like you can't actually see that until we actually study your brain, and that is when you're gone. So that's the only argument against that, right? Like any lawyer is gonna be like, well, we can't prove that he has CTE. You know what I mean? Like we can't do that until he's dead, right? But by the time they're dead, it's too late, you know, in most cases.
Let me know if you guys can see me and hear me. Give me a yes if you can see me and hear me, because it looks like Jeff froze, and maybe Jeff will be back in a second. Let's see here. I'll tell you what.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, man? Okay, go ahead, man. Go ahead, brother. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, yeah. So the only problem against that is the fact that it could. I mean, you can't actually prove it until someone's gone, and like I said, once they're gone, it's too late. What the damage has already been done.
Yeah, you know, and I do agree, and I'm hoping that they can come up with other tests that can confirm that something's gone, you know, or something's not right with the brain. Because I think that last time I saw, they said like a large percentage of NFL players have CTE, like 90%. You know, but I mean, putting CTE to the side, there is such a thing as, you know, people being connected to what might be called thug life. You know, and with Aaron Hernandez, I'm watching this documentary and just trying to figure out, you know, what's up with all this gangster shit? Why are we trying to, you know, and it's not just those guys. I mean, it goes back a long time ago. I know it's sacrilegious to even say this, but a lot of people had that critique of Tupac back when he got killed. You know, now you can't say it because he's like a god in hip hop. But back then, you know, I was the same age as him, and I remember watching all of that in real time, right as it was happening, and all of us were like, if he keeps doing this, he's going to be dead. Like he's not going to be alive to the age of 30. And then he was dead, and we're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's about when we thought it was going to go down, you know. And a lot of people felt that it was because, you know, you feel like because you want to maintain this realness with your friends that, you know, when some shit go down, you're trying to prove something to your boy. So you're the first one to throw the first punch, like ASAP Rocky. You know, ASAP Rocky should not have been throwing any punches in Switzerland or wherever the hell he was. His ass should have been in the SUV. He's the $1 million baby. He's the golden goose. He's the reason everybody gets to eat. So
you're the cash cow.
I'm like, get him in the car and get him away from the situation. We'll go to jail, but we can't have him go to jail because we all stop eating, right? So it's just about like smart business decision making, like in terms of protecting your assets. So anyway, I don't have much else to say, man. So I'll let you get the last word. So what do you think things are going to go for Antonio Brown? Like, what do you see?
So the sad thing is that AB still has pending cases already, right? Like, so the NFL hasn't made decisions on those two sexual assault, you know, alleged sexual assault, you know, allegations towards AB. So they haven't even made any kind of decision on that, right? And now you have this. They'll probably, you know, maybe serve some jail time, maybe not, you know, whatever, this alleged, you know, arrest warrant. That's one thing that's for sure. The arrest warrant is there. So once all of that stuff is compiled and the decision is made, see, that's the thing about the NFL. You don't have to be convicted in court to get in trouble with the league, right? So the league can suspend you and you have never went to jail. You have never been arrested. And because you have 3 pending investigation style, like whether it's an arrest warrant, an alleged sexual assault or whatever, the chances of him playing football next year aren't very high. And that's the sad thing, because he's such a good player. And at one point he was such a good role model. To see all of this stuff unfold like this, you know, I just hope he gets some help. I hope he gets the proper help as far as like mental health, a therapist, someone around him that really tries to guide, a mentor, tries to guide him in the right direction. And hopefully we haven't seen the last of Antonio Brown. Hopefully the next time we're talking about him, it's something that he's doing well or something on the football field and not all of this off the field stuff.
Yeah, let's hope he gets it together, you know, and I think these are conversations that we should be having as Black men. You know, I make it 100% clear. I know sometimes people expect me to only talk about financial stuff, but I let people know I'm not a finance professor who happens to be Black. I'm a Black man who happens to be a finance professor. And I think that you can't talk about things like, you know, a lot of you guys who come here and you see us talk about wealth and things like that, that's important. And this is a wealth conversation. You know, you can't build wealth, you can't build empires, you can't build anything if your personal life is out of whack. You can't build anything if you're out here trying to, you know, promote thug life and trying to keep it real to the point where you're going to keep it broke. You're going to destroy everything that you built, right? So ultimately, when we're talking about these things, you have to talk about wealth-related issues within the context of life. And that's why I appreciate guys like Jeff Lightsey Jr., because because I think these are just real conversations that we need to have as a community, as opposed to letting those other people have those conversations, because they're talking about us, but we need to be the ones talking about us. So if you agree and you agree that Black people should come first, just type B1 in the chat. So we know we're on the same page. Type B1 in the chat. And also, I want everybody to know who I was just speaking with. His name is Jeff Lightsey Jr. He's with the Boyce Sports Network. Boyce stands for Brothers on Sports and Society. So if you want to follow and check out some of Jeff's commentary, one way you can do it is you can go to theboycesportsnetwork.com. That's theboycesportsnetwork.com. He does commentary every day on a lot of sports issues, like Stephen A. And Jeff, what is your other social media handles?
So I'm on Twitter at JLightsey and the number 7. That's at JLIGHTSY and the number 7. Like I said, we talk a lot about sports. We cover at least one topic a day. We've done AB, we've done Aaron Hernandez, some of these things we talked about. We've done, how some guys have made it, like Raheem Mostert, why running backs are devalued and things like that. Yeah. Why Giannis will turn down $250 from the Bucks, $250 million.
That was a good one about Giannis. Is that
Giannis? Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
How do you pronounce his name? It's the craziest name, the Greek freak. That's what I just call him. I can't say his fucking name. What's the guy's name?
Giannis Antetokounmpo. Why I think he'll turn down $250 million from the Bucks. Like, just different sports topics we hit every day, so it's a lot of fun. And yeah, that's what we do.
Well, yeah. See, that tells you that tells me that you're serious about sports, is that you took the time to learn how to pronounce his long ass name, like completely. I know of him. Like, I know his game pretty well. Like, I follow it. I know the Bucks are leading the East and all that, so I follow it on that level. But I saw his name. I said, man, I can't pronounce that shit. But he's but I need to learn his name because he's a bad boy and he's a great player. And the fact that you mentioned that you thought he was going to turn down $250 million. That was actually a good analysis because, I remember you made the very good point that a lot of these NBA players, they have so many other ways to make money now. They don't need to go to the city that's going to give them the biggest contract. So the small market teams are going to lose because, why not take 10 million less, total in my contract, or 20 million less or whatever, and then go to New York or LA and I'm going to make 100 million or 50 million or whatever, just from the connections in LA. LeBron's in LA, he's doing movies and TV shows and all this other stuff. He's going to make more money off the court than he ever made on the court. And that's kind of a crazy world to live in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why that gives these athletes, especially NBA athletes, the luxury to move around. They're like, what's crazy, boys, is not like 10 to 20 million. They're turning down like 40 million from these teams, right? Like 40 to 60 million. But on the back end, you get $200 and $300 million contracts from Nike or Adidas or Puma, and that's how you make it up, right? And that's before you get to your production companies, before you get to your movie making, before you get to your commercials and all that other stuff. So it's like, it's crazy. It's a crazy world they live in. It's a crazy world.
Yeah. And it's just thinking on that, just building on that thought. And by the way, somebody's asking what the sports network is. It's theboycesportsnetwork.com. So somebody type that in so everybody can see it. THE theboycesportsnetwork.com. But one other point, it's funny because even on a lower tier level, I've never made as much money as the NBA players make. But even when I was teaching at Syracuse University, I had a good contract. I was making good money. I was making six figures and all that. And but I remember, I was thinking about taking a job at a school I actually wanted to teach at, and I remember that once I learned how to make my own money outside of my job, what it did was it changed the way I viewed opportunities. So the people in my department would be arguing over who's going to get, are you going to get a $5,000 raise this year or $3,000 raise? I didn't give a fuck because I was like, I can go make $5,000, doing something else over here. So what happens is like your salary from your main job is not as important anymore when you learn how to make money from other things. So by that time I'd had, unlike my colleagues who had one stream of income, I had like 6. So I was just like, I'll just pull another lever and make my money over here. And, I don't even care about what's going on over here. So I think the NBA players are just experiencing that on a cosmic scale, where you can't walk away from a $30-40 million a year deal from the Bucks because you want to go play for the Knicks, which is why it's so damn confusing that the team sucks so bad. right?
That's why I said he'd go play for the Warriors. He ain't going to the Knicks. Ain't nobody going to the Knicks. He's going to go to the Warriors.
You know what? You should do an analysis one day. I'd love to hear your analysis on why the Knicks organizationally, are so bad.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Because I like to, because I really don't understand. You got this big market team. There are lots of reasons to be in New York. It's the media capital of the world. I'd want to play in New York, but clearly something's wrong. And I'd like to hear your analysis on that.
Yeah, I could definitely do that. That's something we could do. And it's really simple answer. It's the owner. It's Jim Dolan.
Really?
Because players are going to New York. We just saw Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving go to New York. They just went to the Nets. They went to Brooklyn, right? Like they went to, everybody thought they were going to the Knicks, and they went to the Nets in Brooklyn instead. And so they're playing at the Barclays, not at Madison Square Garden. And a lot of it has to do with the ownership, right? Like the best teams in the NBA, NFL, whatever, they're organizationally ran. They're like a proper business. They're like Facebook or Amazon or Google. You know what I mean? Like businesses that are thrived or that excel. That's why the Warriors have been so good. That's why the Patriots in the NFL have been so good, because they're historically great, well-run businesses. And once your business is well-run and I can make a lot of money, and that's how we become great teams and we win championships, and that allows more players and more people to want to come into this business.
Interesting. Okay. Well, speaking of Brooklyn, guys, actually Brooklyn is where we're going to have the All Black National Convention in October. So mark that on your calendar, the weekend of October 16th. So we're actually right now we're it's looking like Medgar Evers College. I think we have to sign the contract. I know it's late, but that's how we just do stuff. But that's where we're planning on having it, because Brooklyn's a great city. It's actually just emerging so nicely, and so and we have a lot of love in Brooklyn. So thanks a lot, man. It was great talking to you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, and everybody, please give Jeff Lightsey Jr. a digital round of applause. The URL is thebosssportsnetwork.com. You said your Instagram and your Twitter is was it J Lightsey 7? J Lightsey 7, and also thebosssportsnetwork.com. And also, if you're a brother out here or a woman, anybody, and you love to do sports commentary, we actually have spaces for people that want to come in and do their thing. But you got to be good. You got to be professional. You got to be consistent. We don't want anybody that's going to be in there bullshitting. But feel free to send an email or a message over to info@flynubianmedia.com. That's info@flynubian. Sorry, scratch that. Producer @flynubianmedia.com. That's producer@flynubianmedia.com. So thanks a lot, Jeff. Have a good day, man. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up button, share, and subscribe before you go. And we will see you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye. Peace.